随着新冠疫情蔓延，美中两国间的紧张气氛加剧。近来有不少分析人士担忧，美中两国或许正在走向一场新冷战。这场新冷战是否无可避免？新冷战是否符合美国的利益？除了潜在的新冷战之外，美国是否有更好的选择？此外，美中两国可以从上一次冷战中学到什么？本期热点快评，我们为您邀请到美国乔治华盛顿大学历史与国际事务专业教授裴斗虎。我们现在就来听一听他的看法。
I don't know if a full-on Cold War between the United States and China is inevitable, but I do think some worsening of the relationship between Beijing and Washington is definitely coming. I don't think that the United States should try to think of itself as being in a new Cold War with China. We were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union and China for decades. It didn't really benefit the United States, it didn't help our prestige, and it didn't help China either. I think both countries should look at what happened during the last Cold War and how that intense competition actually impacted them and impacted the well-being of their people and impacted their own prestige and status in the international arena when they think about what kinds of policies that they're coming up with in managing their relationship today. I think, yes, there's inevitably going to be some areas that we disagree. I think there's, right now the Chinese are more confident in their system, and the United States is going to feel somewhat disillusioned by this because they had long been expecting that eventually China's system would change. It's not going to happen. But the United States is going to have to learn to live with China as it is and recognize that there's not that much we can do to change it. Another reason that I think that we should not get involved in a new Cold War with China or not start a new Cold War with China is because the United States and China, even though they have different systems and different ideas, they still have some common interests. And good statecraft is not telling somebody, you're my enemy and you're my enemy at all of the time. Good statecraft is being able to work together with other countries that have different ideas and different interests than you sometimes, but work together when you have common interests and common objectives, while at the same time competing with them or containing them where you have where you clearly have different interests. So that's the kind of statecraft I think we need, a combination of cooperation and competition that doesn't make China our enemy, but takes a realistic, measured approach to dealing with the PRC. Well, I think in the last Cold War, I would say a couple of things. I think that as I interpret the Cold War, there was a Cold War competition with the Soviet Union, but there is also, as I've described in my book, a separate sort of Cold War competition with China in the Third World. And one of the things that I've argued in my book is that if you look at Sino-American rivalry during the Cold War, it actually cost both countries money, and it didn't further the objective of either country. Both countries tried to improve their prestige by attacking each other. It didn't work. They both ended up hurting themselves. Both countries sought to advance their strategic interests by competing in different places. It never worked. Vietnam was really a disaster for both China and the United States. That was a country where there was a lot of competition between the two, where China supported leftist insurgents and the United States supported counterinsurgency. So I think we have to keep this in mind, that Cold War didn't serve our objectives. And even if you talk about the Cold War with the Soviet Union, there were still a lot of ways that there were still a lot of ways in which America's interests were hurt rather than helped. And that doesn't mean that we should have embraced Mao or Stalin. It just means that we need to find a way to work towards common interests and toward common goals, and not say 100% of the time they're our enemy. Another important lesson of the Cold War, I should say, is, there were a few instances in the Cold War where the entire world was brought very close to complete annihilation and destruction. And we should never forget that. And when we talk about a new global rivalry, that's always something that we have to be wary of, that the interests of all of humanity are more important than the interests of any particular country, and they're more important than any individual competition or rivalry.
听众观众朋友们，您刚才听到的是美国乔治华盛顿大学历史与国际事务专业教授裴斗虎就这一问题发表的看法。嘉宾在节目中发表的观点仅代表嘉宾本人，不代表美国之音。感谢您的收听收看，我们下期再见。